My name is Emmanuel Ringelbaum, born 1900 in Austria-Hungary, or Ukraine today. When I was around 20 years old, I moved here to Warsaw. And you know, it's ironic, because I wrote my doctoral thesis in Warsaw University on the history of Jews in Warsaw. I would have never thought that soon I would be a part of someone else's thesis on the history of Jews in Warsaw. I was a Jewish historian. Well, I'd like to think that I still am. Now let me ask you guys a question. What do you consider a normal society? Ones that have education, schools, ones that have doctors, a government, an economic system, all the essentials. Now picture in the Warsaw Ghetto, where we survived on 183 calories a day. Soon 177 calories a day. There are kids dead on the floor, on the streets, from starvation. There are hundreds of people dying from typhus and other diseases. An average of 8 people cramped into a tiny, tiny room. You think we'd have bigger problems to focus on? A society who has time for that. We need to focus on survival. But we have schools. We have doctors and hospitals. We have orphanages, soup kitchens. We even have an orchestra. We have all the critical components, even in such terrible circumstances. And what about the artists, poets, authors? Who cares about them, right? What, in a time like this? If you were a passionate artist, one would have probably thought, you don't belong here. No, not in the world of the ghetto. But these creative people were just as essential as the doctors and educators. Being resilient is defined as being able to withstand difficult times. But we didn't only withstand. We lived. We did everything in our power to hold on to that thing that made us feel human. And yes, I would still like to consider myself a historian. And yes, it's not feeding children or leading communities or saving lives, but it's my own resilience. It's how I withstood these dark and difficult times. And so I present Oneg Shabbat, a group that I started to collect archives of the Warsaw Ghetto. Drawings, poems, diaries, so that you, the future, could really know the meaning of resilience. My name, Henrik Goldsmith. Born in Warsaw, 1878. Nothing could have prepared me for life in the ghetto. No one could have warned me about the horrors. Growing up in an assimilated family in Warsaw, I never got a chance to see how tightly knit the Jewish community really was. In the ghetto, everyone has to stand up and take a role in the community. Before the ghetto, I was a practicing pediatrician and wrote children's literature. No job was more suited for me than running the orphanage. My birth name, Henrik Goldsmith. The children know me as Janusz Korczak. I try to make life in the ghetto as normal as possible. I believe, and always will be, a strong believer in letting the children express themselves freely and independently. I also tried to encourage the kids to make a democracy of themselves with a parliament and even make their own newspapers. I tried as hard as I could to keep things as normal as possible, give them an education, or even just celebrate each child's birthday. Our power lies within our capability for normalcy. These children are everything to me, and their gradual deaths are like losing one of my own. I was very fortunate to have been offered multiple times to be smuggled out of the ghetto. The Poles even offered me multiple times amnesty, but every time I replied the same way. You don't leave a sick child in the night, and you don't leave children in a time like this. I would just do about anything for these kids. 200 is the number of children right now in my care. I hear rumors that there's another deportation. I know this is not going to end well. But I know I'll put a smile on, lead my kids, tell them everything will be okay. For all together, I know it will be. I put in the Oneg Shabbat, my children's drawings. Their expressions of how they saw their lives are seen through their pictures, and each serves to remember their individuality and incredible lives they led in the orphanage.
Although the children are no longer alive physically, their names, creativity, and stories of their resilience will live on forever.
My name is Adam Chernikoff. I was born November 1880 in Warsaw. I am not a bad man, but my position makes me do bad things. I serve as head of the Judenrat of the Warsaw Ghetto. I give the Nazis names and locations of Jews to be resettled, which is a more pleasant term for brutally murdered. I try every day to save as many lives as I can. I try getting exemptions, but it is becoming more impossible to save them and even more impossible to live with myself. I was unable to save the children of Janusz Korczak's orphanage, and it eats me up inside. As a leader, my position is compromising, and I crumble knowing that their lives are in my hands. Every functional society needs a leader, a government, but I do not want to do it. I cannot live with the guilt. I feel as though I deserve to die. I have just signed away my people to be killed in Treblinka, and I do not think I can live another day with the guilt on my conscience. But those who I have signed away do not deserve to be forgotten. My contribution to the Oneg Shabbat is my diary, which chronicles my time as head of the Judenrat. They demand me to kill the children of my nation with my own hands. I have nothing to do but die. I can no longer bear all of this. My act will prove to everyone what is the right thing to do.
Adam Chernikoff committed suicide after his job ate him alive. His efforts to lead, although there were hardships, were the backbone of the ghetto's ability to succeed as a community.
My name is Yisrael Stern. I was born in Ostroleka near Warsaw in 1894. At the beginning of the war, I was sent to a prison camp because of my Russian citizenship, but eventually I relocated to Warsaw. From then on, I began writing about everything and anything. I wrote about the modern world despite my cultural Yiddish shtetl upbringing. I wrote about my father's death, my economically deprived lifestyle. I wrote literary reviews and public affair articles. Even in the hospital, when I was starving to death, I sat and I wrote poems, essays, and stories. When I arrived in the ghetto, my condition only worsened. Disease was spreading like wildfire, starvation was our only option, and so I wrote about the peril, the turmoil, and the hardship we faced day to day. I wrote about the inanimate world around me. I wrote about the metropolis that was built within these tight walls. I wrote about God, about the odd clarity that came from such adversity. I nearly died multiple times, but I never stopped documenting. I never stopped thinking, and I never stopped trying to capture the essence of the times. I put my poems in the Oneg Shabbat for the accounts of bravery through hunger, disease, and poverty. I am being sent to Treblinka with my articles of modernity, policy, and culture, hoping they will be used to understand the truth and resilience of the people of this time and the incredible world they built within the barbed wires.
Lullaby for a Jewish Child in Germany by Yisrael Stern, 1939, translated by Arnie Goldman. Sleep, my child, the sun's fallen down, and is badly hurt, but you mustn't frown. Sleep, my child, the evening's long gone. It's late, late, though yet our time's yet to come. See, the day has bowed down, ashamed and red. You don't know yet, child, of shame or of death. Many days for you, child, will still be kept open. Your mama must watch now so you can lie sleeping. Sleep, child, they've already risen, the stars. No one can know what will come of their fears. Both he whose heart's heavy and he whose is light, we all go from within like a tree in the night. But beautiful fruit can come from a black tree. For your tiny hands, I so want this to be. One day your hands will make sinners pay deep. Meanwhile, sleep, my dearest, my little one, sleep. Sleep, my child, it is still soft, your bed. Close your eyes tight, don't hear what I've said. Of blind thoughts, what sense could you make? They tremble with fear, the path that they take. How far will they go, these unsilent nights? Some days others will curse, and you will be right. Good fellow, night and stars, as one will be shining. But sleep now, don't hear how your mama is crying. My holiest child, you're already asleep, and a boat grabs the moon and swims over the deep, until it arrives at a forest so tall, where every tree is centuries old. And along with their roots, crawling up from the deep, come past generations, are letters to receive. The silvery letters brought by the moon, and they write us back on the night sky's blue. First the boat sails itself home to our place, and a smile of joy comes to your sleeping face. And you and I, dearest, are no longer alone. Sleep, child, sleep. It's so lovely this dream. Warsaw, July 28, 1939.
Yisrael believed that suffering is not a reason to distance ourselves from Hashem, but rather bring you closer. Especially at times when we think Hashem isn't there, we must look harder for Him.
My name is Gela Ekstein. I was born in 1907 in Warsaw, Poland. I was born into a working-class family. My father was a cobbler, and my mother died when I was 11. My artistic talents were discovered early on by writer Joshua Singer, who eventually got me an art scholarship in Krakow. When I returned to Warsaw in 1938, my husband and I married, and I began teaching art locally. In 1940, we were forced into the ghetto, where I had my daughter Marguerite. But being in the ghetto wasn't reason enough to stop painting. I began teaching art classes to the entrapped Jews. I made costumes for the play in 1942. We continued art in addition to other creative programs we started in the ghetto. We avoided feeling like prisoners, made sure that nothing made us feel helpless or entrapped. Art was only one of the many cultural influences we did not let die in our brand new society. We created a city for thousands out of a few thousand square feet. Sometimes I sit outside in the square with my supplies and just paint whatever I see. I did portraits of children in soup kitchens. I painted my daughter, my husband, my neighbors. I painted the emaciated children in the street and the people that were begging for their lives. I painted the unbelievable functional society we created with our various talents. My husband and I joined the Onyx Shabbat when talk of deportation spread throughout the ghetto. I put 300 paintings in the time capsule to paint a picture of what we lived and built together. I put portraits of the fighters, of the revolutionaries, of the caretakers, the mothers, the fathers, the students, the actors, the singers, and the businessmen. I go tomorrow to fight in the uprising against the Nazi tyranny. But whatever happens, I know that we've already beat them.
If your love and passion for something is so strong, you find a place for it in your life. Use your talents to create and preserve history.
My name is Kalanimus Kalman Shapira. I was born in Grodzisk, Poland. In 1909, they began calling me the Piaseczno Rebbe when I was appointed Rabbi of Piaseczno. After the Nazi invasion of Poland, I was detained in Warsaw with a few of my Hasidim. Jewish life had to go on. We couldn't let the Nazis control our Avodat Hashem and our Jewish status. So, I decided to establish a secret synagogue within the ghetto. And although not always done perfectly, I arranged for mikvah immersions and kosher marriages. I established a soup kitchen at my home where I would give drashot. These drashot were later written in the book under the title Eish Kodesh. One of my biggest struggles was teaching in underground chadarim or elementary schools. On one hand, it's heartbreaking to see these young children living in these horrible conditions, going through what they're going through. But on the other hand, it's amazing to see how these young boys still learn to learn Torah and keep their Judaism during these terrible times. These children were the ones that were smuggling the food, doing all this, still had the drive to go to learn with their rabbis, learn Tanakh. That was their focus in schools. I preach to the Warsaw congregation that despite all appearances, the world is good, and all evil will one day be transformed into good. I remind my people that with fidelity to the Torah, we will survive. We must never forget our dignity and self-respect. We are royalty, even while being beaten. But most of all, we must have compassion for our fellow Jew and for Hashem. We must help our fellow Jew in any way possible. We must not forget that Hashem suffers infinitely when his children are suffering, when his children are in pain. I watch us all as we contribute our strengths, and I am in awe of how incredible we are when we all come together. When I began to realize that the end of the ghetto was approaching, I buried my book in a canister. I hope that one day our nation will look back, having survived these treacherous times, and learn from our refusal to give up on each other, on our community, and on our faith in Hashem.
The Piaseczna Rebbe taught us that Jewish life is in our control, and no matter who invades, constricts, or tries to destroy us, our religious identity will protect us and keep us strong.
This Warsaw Memorial stands to commemorate the citizens of the ghetto who fought and fell with dignity. On the front, we have those who fought against Nazi oppressors. Their strength and bravery inspires us every single day. On the back, there are those who walk to Treblinka, heads down, ready to be killed al Kiddush Hashem. Our contribution to the Warsaw Memorial is a third part that serves to honor the innovators, the creative and industrious people who defeated the Nazis by not letting life crumble after being sent to the ghetto. Though the belongings they brought to the ghetto were limited, their ideas, talents, and leadership skills were what truly made their efforts resilient.